What's going on, guys? My name is RagingRaptor, your source for World of Tanks news and previews. And today we have something new and something interesting. We have an update about Minsk. Well, that's a map I didn't saw that often lately. Anyway, Minsk, as you might have seen, I am not really fond of playing this map. I don't know, I just find it boring. Yes, there are other maps which are equally as bad, but for me, Minsk is just a map I really do not like to see. So yeah, Minsk is getting another update. They are already trying several times to make different Supertest stages or Supertest updates on Minsk, and once again we've got one, and let's have a look at what we have for now and compare it with what we have right now. The first change they have is that the court behind the People's Deeds Are Immortal building has been opened up. This is definitely something very well needed in my opinion, because this position is actually very strong if you know what you are doing at the roundabout. If you are playing properly in a hull down tank and rush the roundabout position, you have an incredible time. The only real thing which can screw you over is artillery, like in most cases. But yeah, in this position right now it is very strong. After this update, or if this update comes through, not so much anymore. You are able to definitely work yourself out there and see what you can do, because now you can flank those people. And this is a great thing in my opinion. This is a really great thing that Wargaming decides to open up the map. So we have more opportunities to fight against people which are standing there hold down, even though personally I don't see it that often because it's still very risky to get into that position. The next point is the map setting has been changed to autumn. The foliage has been removed from the trees, some shrubbery has been added to the park. Now, this is very interesting in my opinion, because right now the only vegetation which is left is on the bushes. And I already talked to this with the German DM about the trees, and they still will provide camouflage, but trees usually give around 50% camouflage at a bonus, and those shrubberies or those dead trees with just their, well, how should I say, with their branches should give around 25%. Obviously, do not count me on that. It just means that the map in general looks more open and more eye-friendly in my opinion. But it also makes this map a little bit more interesting, because you can't use that many bushes or that many trees anymore to make makeshift cover. Especially when those trees only give 25% camo and not 50% like the trees with leaves at least give. Next thing, the riverbed has been drained and turned into a playable zone. Several exits from the riverbed have been added in various parts of the map. That is really interesting, because in general to me, on the real map, I just dislike the river, because basically you have 3 or 4 positions you can cross, 2 per side. And this is just, it breaks the map very much, because you hardly have a chance to use, for example, good mobility, different strats and so on. You always have to go a long way around, and yes, of course, you sometimes can surprise an enemy because he didn't got spotted for a long time. But then again, I personally am definitely not a fan of it just being dividing the map and giving us only 2 exits basically. Now with the changed riverbed, with it losing most of its water, it even gives us nice elevation change. It really looks interesting. You can see that at most cranes you have positions you can drop into it, but probably not drive out of it. So it is a commitment to drop into the river and try to fight there. And it is just not a position you will be RD safe or safe in general, because you can get shot from above, you can shot from the side and so on and so forth. Still, I like it that it's more traversable and not just bound to 4 exits. So that's a good point. Well done, Wargaming. Next up, we have some cover has been added to the streets on line 9. This is interesting because this cover, it looked very meaningless to me. Like some plates or some stone bricks were pushed inwards. That's about it. And some bricks were pushed outward, so you have a little bit of hold down and cover. But then again, I usually never really play the 9 line because it's just too corridor-like, so I don't really know. The question is, however, if you can drive behind this part, because it kind of looked like you could, but on the minimap it doesn't show, so you won't probably be able to drive on behind this barrier, which is a little bit of a pity, but then again, we should be happy that we get more playable area on the map. On the second picture, if I looked at it with Phil, and nothing really changed except for some more stone bricks or stone pallets being moved around to give us one more side scraping position. Again, it's not really much or not that much in my opinion. It's neglectable, but it is a change and it could help a side scraping tank to use this position down there. But again, it's really, really small change. In general, the map size has slightly increased and a passage has been added behind the buildings along the K line. So this is interesting. Yes, the map was slightly widened, but it also got kind of shifted from the 1 line or the A line towards the K line. So it was pushed from the left side to the right side a tiny bit. We're going to see this in a later picture. The interesting part is, however, that we now have a much more convenient attacking position when you want to get towards the upper base. Usually you have to fight through a lot of bushes, a lot of trees, which obviously are gone now. And now you even have a passageway which is completely being blocked from the open field. Plus there are only some small bushes, 2 bushes to be precise, you could use to shoot at them. And it makes attacking this side a lot more convenient. So this will be really interesting. It also kind of makes it easier to cross towards the upper side of the map where usually the mediums are battling. But I never really noticed the issue of a lot of people YOLOing me there or trying to YOLO me there. So yeah, spot me and getting shot by artillery. So I do like the change for when you have to attack this space, but it's not really that big of a change. It's not really that big of a change for the people which are starting on this base, because you can't really get in. You basically can get into your medium tank position unspotted, but rarely somebody makes such a suicidal spot, in my personal experience. Next, we'll look at the upper side of the map, where usually the medium tanks and hull-down tanks are battling. The small town has been completely redesigned and a subway construction site has been added. This is very, very interesting in my personal opinion, because it definitely completely changes the map. Like, it really looks a lot different, and this trench actually reminds me a lot of the Stutzjanki map on the left-hand side of the map. But it looks much, much deeper. And one thing you also see, the added barricades will 100% give us more space to work with. Like, there will be a lot more space to work and fight around, and it helps us to not get shot at from the middle. It kind of closes off this side of the map a little bit, maybe a little bit too much. But then again, it also gives the people much safer attacking routes when you come from the upper side. It's really, really interesting, and I like this change a lot. They also change the red borderline, which has been shifted to remote passage along the line 1 has been removed. That is also fairly interesting in my opinion, because it now makes this a one-way corridor. Beforehand we had a two-way corridor, but now it's just one. So I'm not really a fan of this change, to be honest. I understand it, but I'm not a big fan of it, to be honest. So yeah, let's move on, I personally would say. Additional cover along the upper part of the street on line 2 has been added. And I don't really see the purpose of this cover yet. It probably helps the attacking team, because you are having some hard cover against the TD sniping on the K9, K5 bushes or K5 position. That is good, but I still rarely used to play over this field. Usually you just drive around this 1-2 line down behind the cover, behind the buildings, until you're all the way down on the minimap. So I don't really know what exactly is up with this place, to be honest. And lastly, we have a close-up which shows that the construction barriers, which are indestructible objects on the minimap, have a small opening so you can drive through them. You can see there are some what's it called, some ramps up from the middle or from the low side, so you can easily drive up again. And now you can decide if you want to go through the opening or if you want to drive towards the streets, the main streets, and maybe even use the new cover. So yeah, in general, I do like what Wargaming did to the Minsk. Again, I am not a big fan of the current map, and I probably won't be in a long time, but it looks good in my opinion. Like, it looks more interesting, especially the opening up of the river makes it look much more interesting to me personally, and the upper side changes also make it look more fightable. The question really is if this closing up because of the construction side might be too much to make people which drive actively in the middle have impact. But then again, I also do like that Wargaming decided to change or nerf all the bushes or the trees down, because in the end, there was a lot of shrubbery, a lot of trees around which blocked a lot of views, or the view range. So yeah, in general, I'm happy with it. I'm generally really happy with it. One thing nothing else to say, to be honest. Nothing really else to say. My name is RagingRaptor, thank you so much for your attention, and I'll talk to you all later. Cheers, guys.